Hello. Ooh, interesting. Well, anyway, I just wanted to go live for a bit. I'm going to take off this headphone because I don't need to hear my own audio. Boom, 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 boom. Sitting back, relaxing, enjoying this. Apparently aged in IPA barrels. Is IPAs aren't aged or barreled? Finished in craft beer. Why? Okay. Anyway. Hopefully some people join. I don't even know why I wanted to go live. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to talk about like art for a bit. Uh, struggles, passions. I've been working on this one painting. Uh, Feels like a little bit too much. It's been way too long. It's been over a year since I started. It's probably been 2 years since I started it. Uh, and it is almost done. I am just moments away. But there's sections that require me to tape off sections in order to get these straight lines, in order to get the desired effect. And a lot of it's still wet and tacky, so I do not want to just smear tape and try to get it adhered down. So it's the last few brush strokes are basically days apart because of poor planning on my part. There were sections I should have done sooner in order to be prepared now, and now I'm just putting it all together at the last bit, aka why you should always finish the painting or work on the painting all at once rather than sections. In this painting, honestly, I worked in sections. I worked in the top, I worked in the bottom, and then I worked back at the top, I worked in the bottom, and completely neglected the middle for the longest amount of time. And now I'm actually back into working on all of it. But now it's just like little fine detail wires that are holding all the light fixtures, and then also all the light fixtures. All the people are in there. All the fermentation equipment is in there. All of the Okay, most of it's in there. Most of it's in. Most of it's done. Blah blah blah. Uh, but yeah, all those little detail works are just driving me crazy. And yeah, and also I am using brushes that are too far gone. I'm hoping to sell a painting very very soon in order to buy new brushes. And whatever I sell the painting for, that's how many new brushes I'm going to buy. No one's joined yet. Join me for a drink. Ah, So I was actually watching someone else's live real quick. That's kind of why I wanted to go live myself. They were talking about art school and it's important to get an MFA. I do not have an MFA. I want to stress that. I do not have an MFA or the BFA. But I have a lot of friends who have MFAs. And oh, hello, Bill Nye 47. How's it going? Oh, and look, other people. Yay, Richard G. Knight. Yeah, well, hey, welcome. So, just talking about art for a bit. What I was reiterating, I don't have an MFA, and I personally don't think an MFA is necessary unless you plan to teach, which is one reason I wish I had an MFA in painting, but I don't. But also to establish your art in that community is a good reason to have an MFA. Luckily, I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I kind of forced my way into our art community here, and everyone I know that has an MFA in this community uh, basically says that the best part of it is that it got them access to locations and places that they wouldn't if they didn't have an MFA, or it'd be a lot more difficult because thanks to them and being friends, I now have access to those locations. Uh, and Indianapolis is a weird art community because like the places I used to hang quite often are now going away. So it's a little bit more strict, a little bit more difficult to make a note. AKA, that's why it's important for like places like TikTok and uh, other venues to basically like display your art. And honestly, the whole online movement is like as my audience grows, I'm getting a lot more attention in places I never would have had before social media. And it's just kind of odd because I tried Instagram, and Instagram did not work for me. But mostly because instead of posting art pictures, I posted pictures of my food. Uh, I love cooking, and uh, that is not reflected in my art. But TikTok seems to be doing great. Like I'm at that moment right now. It's like, am I shadow banned? But at the same time, I know some of my stuff is getting views, and also I entered that creator fund, which I think was a mistake. But at the same time, it kind of keeps me going. It's fun to watch it go. Uh, I have a $1.60 in the back, ready to go here. I'll say, feel free to write in anything. I'd love to chat. Love to give your opinions on art, MFA, school. Uh, any questions? I've been posting a lot of weird stuff lately. It feels like very sporadic. It's like, hey, look, paint, art, yay, woohoo, art, yay. Like, here's me eating food. Uh, oh, thank you. Yeah. Uh, I, uh, I feel I'm going random here because I am also drinking some delicious uh, discount whiskey at my grocery store. They're having a clearance, so well, it's actually good stuff. It's Jameson, but it's like aged in beer barrels, which is pretty cool. So yeah, and actually here I'll talk about my plans for art. Kind of uh, keep people keeping me honest. So I am finishing this painting right now. The one I've been posting the most on social media, which is of Urban Chestnut uh, Brewing in St. Louis, Missouri. It's actually one of my favorite places, and their beer is hard to describe it, but it's very unique within the craft beer community. But also the place is really unique in the craft beer community. It was a huge beer hall, and I just fell in love with it. And I went to St. Louis once with my friends as part of a beer trip, and took a bunch of photos. And I was like, man, I really want to paint this place. And every single photograph just did not have that right feeling. So ended up like 2 years later, I went back with another group of friends for a beer trip, and uh, took better photographs, and as tried to actually get that distance involved with those new photographs. And still, it was like another year, 2 years with those photographs before I started the painting. And since I started it, it's been another year, 2 years since I've actually come to this point where I'm almost completed it. I honestly had it packed away and did not work on it for a year, and I don't know why. Depression, I guess. Other messed up reasons, but bad reasons, good reasons. Bad reason is I was working this day job uh, at a brewery, which I thought would be great for me, and it was great. I love doing it, but the odd hours, the odd times, it was like also managing the brewery to having to go in at like 3 o'clock at no notice because your employee all of a sudden decided to call in sick with 5 minutes before their shift. What are you doing? I am sitting and drinking right now, talking about painting. Hopefully, uh, average time I spend on a painting that varies. There are some paintings that are like 10 hours and done. Most paintings are at least 40 hours. That'll actually sit down, work, but also a lot of that 40 hours is looking, thinking, contemplating color, shape, drawing aspects. So it really doesn't feel like 40 hours. Like time flies. But honestly, there are some paintings that are hundreds of hours. The longest I've ever spent on a painting, I estimate to be about 350 hours, uh, which was my 8 foot by 4 foot painting of a bunch of dead tree limbs. Uh, a bunch of clever, weird tree limbs. Uh, and But most of them are usually around 50 to 60 hours. I'm trying to actually speed myself up and try using new techniques. And oh, hugs, hugs. Thank you. That honestly, I really do appreciate uh, that. I can't believe I'm actually uh, one of their favorite creators on TikTok here. I feel like I'm just goofing off every day in my life, and this just makes it. Uh, this just gives me another way to goof off. I really do appreciate it. Uh, I do some fasts, but they turn out good. But some take days and weeks, and it seems like I overwork that. Overwork is. Uh, oh, I'm 37. Uh, so maybe too old for my app, but hey, I'm young at heart, and but in reality, because of drinking this, my heart is not where it should be. I've been, yeah, I'm not a healthy individual. Uh, so I want to kind of like you put in a point there, especially with time with the work. Like there's some pieces I have done where it's just a few hours, and it turned out great. It turned out better than I expected. There's some I'll put time and time and time and time, and I feel like I'm going nowhere. But also with uh, those pieces, I feel like I'm going nowhere. I realize that I have to have other things going on. There's been paintings, and sadly, I can't show you this painting right now because it's sold at an auction to a charity for the Indianapolis Youth Group here in an auction. But this painting was of we have a mall here with a bunch of escalators, and there's just one part of the escalator system where they're all intertwined. But if you're looking down, you can actually see 5 floors of this mall all at once. And it was a painting I was super proud of once it was finished. In the middle of it, I could not stand to look at that piece of crap. Uh, there was one part that I kept painting over and over again. I mean, and scraped off because I couldn't stand it. And I mean, spent hours and hours and probably anywhere between 4 to 8 hours on this one section that I hated so much that I just got done, threw it in a closet, didn't come back to it for like 8 months. And in that one section, 8 months later, I just pulled it out of the closet, looked at it again, and it was my favorite part of the painting. I thought it worked really, really well. And I remember vividly getting so angry at that spot, I couldn't look at it, but it, it worked. I guess it was just the mood I was in, my current headspace. Uh, it just wasn't working the way I wanted or intended, but it ended up working out better than I intended. Uh, but that's the problem. Like, I only worked on that one painting for the entire year. Like, my motivation wasn't there to work on other things. And as I've gotten older as an artist and developed more, I realized I have to have multiple works going at one time. Even if it's just like something small or something goofy. Right now, I have quote unquote 3 paintings going right now. There's the main one I'm working on, which is of Urban Chestnut. But there's other ones. The other paintings I'm working on, there's one of Brewing Brewery. As you can tell by my shirt, if anyone can tell me what this means, but uh, breweries and brewing and beer have kind of been a life staple for me. So I'm working on a epic brewery painting with my friends and drinking there. And I'm also have a little small canvas that I think it's only 3 by 5 inches, and it's of an eyeball. But it's basically whenever I get the chance, it was like, okay, take a step away from that, just paint an eyeball. The one thing I say over and over again, if you are an artist and someone asks you to draw or paint something, most likely it is going to be an eyeball. Uh, I found that if you ask someone that it really isn't like their art focus, most of the time they will draw a house. Uh, like just a simple like a house with a chimney and smoke coming out and the sunrise. Artists will always usually like 90% of the time go for an eye. Since I started getting commissions, the variety I can switch back and forth. Yeah, exactly. Uh, and even when I do commissions, I always have to make sure I have something on the side because a lot of the time with the commissions and the people that reach out to me for commissions and the commissions I do, I'm not happy with. It's something that I'm not interested in. I have a severe dog allergy to the point where I could be around a dog for a day, but if I'm like around it for 2 days, I'll usually end up in the hospital. So I don't have that relationship with dogs that other do. I do with cats, but most people, when they do commissions with me, it was like, wow, your stuff is glorious, beautiful, magnificent. Can you paint my puppy? And I'm like, yes, I can, as long as you pay me. Uh, so usually, if I'm doing a commission piece, I have to have something that makes me feel fulfilled as an artist on the side. But also going back to timing, there's a few things I've painted that's like brushstroke, brushstroke, brushstroke. Holy cow, that looks amazing. And yeah, there's been stuff that I've just put time and time and time into and went absolutely nowhere. Yeah, this has actually been. You're my only guy right now. Let's see. I'm doing the Batman. Oh yeah, I've definitely seen it, and also the comic has been ridiculously crazy. Uh, yeah, and honestly, I think like that's what you have to do. I'm glad that you're getting a lot out of it too, and I've seen it's you have to do work for yourself. Uh, and commissions are good, money's good, but honestly, I don't think most of my work. It's this is kind of a bad thing to say as an artist. Most of my work, I have no intentions or have no plans to sell. I if someone wants to buy it, I will sell it in a heartbeat. But uh, usually, if I start something, I plan to have it on my wall or just done for the sake of being done because it's in me. I have to get it out. Like I said, I have no plan or like no game plan, I should say. I plan to sell, but I have no game plan on strategy on how to get it out there, how to sell my work. It's more just about getting that creativity on the canvas. The last painting that I did of my two friends, like counterposed at a table, actually, the only reason I did that painting was because my one friend who he seems to be in almost everything I do because we always drink together. But my other friend, he's never actually been in a painting of mine, and we're like the drinking group. We are drinking buddies, so we've gone out so many times, and he's always just missed out on uh, placement in paintings. So I made sure to get his manic craziness there on canvas. Do I do a lot of mixed media or oil paint? And I like that I was hesitant on monetizing art. Sorry for the weird reading too. I'm dyslexic. Uh, uh, I mainly do oil paint, and I'll quick little story here, and let me take a sip of this. So there's a reason I mainly just do oil paint, and I'm trying to get back into some mixed media now, especially charcoal. But charcoal's very messy, and I have two foster children that are already very messy themselves. Uh, uh, so I'm not. I want to get back into charcoal because I love charcoal. I love the feel. I love the ease of charcoal. It has been for me. But mainly it's just oil paint. And the reason is because when I was in college uh, at IU Bloomington, I won an award for best draftsman, basically best drawer. Uh, and it was all the teachers voted for me for that. And I was like, wow, that is super awesome. And I was talking to one of my professors, and he was giving me advice and said, like, okay, yeah, you won this. You won this hands down. You won this easy. But your painting suffered. And the reason my painting suffered was because my color would get muddy. I didn't really mix the paint. I kind of ended up mixing it on the canvas, which has its positives but negatives if you're not doing it right. So he said, like, my drawing aspects of all my paintings were very well done. My charcoal work was by far a lot better than those paintings. And I agree. Looking back now, I agree because a charcoal piece I could put down, get done in an hour, and it'd be magnificent with the lights and darks and shadows and just the contrast and the form structure built on the paper. My paintings didn't really have that. Uh, they started to have that by the end of college, but they really didn't when I was going through college. And I had a teacher basically sit down and look at me and go, "This is what we've been discussing in the background. You have two options. You could like quit painting and you could have a really interesting, nice, but difficult career just doing charcoal and drawing. But I know that's not where your passion is." And it wasn't. I wanted to paint. Uh, I wanted to paint since a very, very young age. And uh, yeah, I wanted to paint since a very young age. And he basically kind of gave me that. It's like I could have a drawing career. It was tempting because I knew I was good at it. But the thing is, with me, the reason I actually went into art was because I found it challenging. There were things that I didn't know and I couldn't do. And still to this day, I usually approach a painting with the idea that at my current level, I do not have the abilities to finish it where I am. I must learn something in order for it to be done. I'm changing that a little bit to actually get some work done, but I kind of have that mindset. And the teacher basically said, "What I want you to do for the remaining time I was in college, and maybe even after until I felt comfortable with where I was, to stop drawing altogether and focus on painting. That way, I'm not doing the under drawings. I'm still kind of drawing still with like paint on canvas and like washes and turpentine. I'm still getting those forms and structure in there, but I needed to focus on my color and my blending and my concentration and building that contrast and the bodies and the shapes with color rather than light. And still to this day, I know I struggle with it, but I feel like I'm doing a lot better than I used to. Uh, Actually, one of my professors who I did not appreciate back when I was in college commented on one of my paintings on Facebook just a few years ago. And he was actually the one that gave me the advice. His name was Tim Kennedy, and he's an amazing artist in his own right. And honestly, after I graduated, I learned more from looking at his work than I did my own. If you look at Tim Kennedy artist on Google, you should find him. There's apparently a football player named Tim Kennedy as well. Uh, but I learned more from looking at his work and the things that he taught me after college than during college. During college, it was like, this guy really doesn't get me. But then after college, it was like, this guy got me more than any of my other professors. And I had amazing professors. And he made a comment on one of my paintings I posted, and it was like, man, it's like you have grown so much, and it was like, well, listen, I'm proud of you moments, and it's like I'm not crying. I'm not crying. If anyone were to like come into the room, they're going to go see me. Just I'm going to bawl instantly. Uh, and I'm actually kind of getting choked up over here right now, and I was super happy with that, and uh, I've been really, really happy with the stuff I've been putting out lately. Okay, I'm going to go back because I know you mentioned something. I never tried much with charcoal, only gesture sketches. And honestly, yeah, those gesture sketches are like a good fundamental. But for me, no, I seriously, I was like, I would have, geez, I had drawings that was like 4 by 6 feet that was just model drawings just thrown up and like weird arm gesture for me right now to get stuff on the wall, on the paper. And man, I loved it. The one weird thing when I was doing charcoal drawing, I always had a wet paper towel wrapped around my hand just out of comfort. but it's just being able to take like a stick of like dark compressed charcoal and fill in and then rub it with your hand and take an eraser and kind of building the forms out of like darkness and shape. I always kind of loved it. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, watercolor. Oh, watercolor. Oh, geez, watercolor is hard. Uh, I have never successfully done a good watercolor piece, but I think it's also because I don't have the patience for it. Uh, I think my painting style is very analytical, and watercolor has a sense of chaos that I can't quite comprehend or and personally feel like I can do well. AKA, why I should probably do more watercolor. I have I have a really nice watercolor set that I purchased that hasn't been touched once. Because I was like, I'm going to go to places and do these little watercolor paintings, and I never, ever ended up doing that. Go say pair watercolor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, I find it funny. Like, I'm kind of curious how you feel about it too. A lot of people think watercolor is more of a drawing technique. In fact, a lot of art shows will judge watercolor as drawing rather than painting. But I feel it does have aspects of both. But at the same time, it's like for me, I really cannot say. Uh, in color theory, holy cow, color theory is for me. I am a very scientific, mathematic person, uh, which is why I'm surprised my color struggled for so long. Uh, but the thing, I was okay. Another just quick story. When I was in the BFA program at IU, blah blah blah. Uh, I was an art ambassador. Uh, if they needed someone to like speak about artwork or to basically speak to them about artwork or basically translate from one artist to another and give ideas about art, it was me. They usually would come to me, uh, but that's also because I was that scientific, analytical individual. There was another individual, David Rassel, who's now a very, uh, very important doctor in the medical community, who just graduated out of our class. And once he left, I basically filled that spot, which was weird because I was not like him at all. When it comes to analytical and science and everything, that man was at a completely different level. But also, he could speak about artwork and theories and stuff on end. And I basically kind of took that spot once he left. But at the same time, it was because I also never fit in with the other students. Uh, because it was like during art critiques, it was like, okay, I'm just going to make up a name here, Lindsay. Uh, I see you used a lot of purple in this section here. Is there a reason for this? And it was like, most of the people in my class would be, yeah, I used the color purple because it represents my emotions and feelings when I was 3. That I did not comprehend. They come to me, it's like, Justin, you used a lot of purple in here. Why did you do that? It's like, well, purple is a complementary to yellow. So using the purple here actually makes this figure and structure look more yellow uh, in comparison and saturation. Not too many artists I know do that. Even like artists I meet and do shows with, it was like I'll talk to their paint. I'll talk to them about their painting and why it works and why it doesn't, and the parts I like and the parts I don't like, and what I think they could do to fix this section and why. And it's weird how art comes together. And I feel like I really love giving that advice and building on people and structure and ideas and making people explore new things that they probably wouldn't explore before. Like every time I'm on TikTok and that whole 10,000 artist trend, like I see a painting or see someone doing work and goes like, I want you to try this. I want you to do this. And I feel like I'm such a pompous ass. Go like, hey, your stuff is good. Here's how you make it better. or here's how you could make it better. But basically, just provoking thought, I think, is one of the most important things when it comes to artwork. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Black and yellow. Like also, usually the most common black that people find is a ivory black. If you try Mars black, you also get this like weird green color, but it's a lot more warm than you would with a ivory black. Ivory black, you kind of get that weird olive green. Mars black, you kind of get more of a brownish tint to that uh, 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 yellow as well. Let's see. Yeah, and honestly, limiting your palette is a great way to learn complementary colors better. So, uh, one of the things when I was in school that actually helped structure uh, was doing an entire painting in two complementary colors plus black and white, and those are the only four colors you're allowed to use. And I actually went the easy route. I chose yellow and purple, uh, or violet because people think purple isn't a color, and I don't know if I agree with that. But yeah, I used yellow and violet, and was basically did a self portrait and was able to make flesh tones with those yellow, purple, black, and white, and basically the different saturations to use mixtures. And I learned a lot from that piece that I was able to bring in other colors and things for it. Honestly, limiting your palette is almost a great way to better yourself with the color that you have. Sometimes the best artwork actually comes from like limitations. Yeah, composition is something that just kind of like honestly, there's a lot of great YouTube videos. The thirds is always a great thing. Uh, Honestly, repeating patterns like for me, it's like making sure like your image doesn't your or the way you follow the image doesn't throw you off the canvas is a great for composition. It's like what you can do to like, keep your image or keep your audience focused on your piece because that's the thing when you're walking through a museum or gallery, even I do it today, like a lot of times just I'll walk into a room, it's like pretty, oh that's nice, okay, next room. There's very seldom like a new painting or a painting that'll catch your attention. But when those paintings that do catch your attention, you have to start asking why. Like, but for me, it's like Caravaggio will always get my attention, but that's because his colors seem too bright or jump off that canvas. But also, if you ever look at a Caravaggio piece, he uses a lot of like black edges and colorful center figures, but those figures are always kind of leading the individuals back into the center of the painting. It's like all of a sudden your eye starts going here, and all of a sudden the guy's, you'll see his eyes looking down at his arm, and his arm goes back to the center and points at the painting. So composition is like one of those really cool things to explore, and honestly, like just basically kind of drawing loops to work on the canvas is that's going to need a lot more explanation, but sometimes like there's a lot of different things and techniques to kind of build that together. Like only using primaries. Oh, yes and no. Honestly, use colors and your color palette that works best for you. Um, Primaries are great, but me and my style, my palette usually deals with a lot more warmer colors. So I have a variety of yellows because I've learned, and it took a while to learn that like I need a light cadmium yellow and a cadmium yellow to get different effects that what I want to use. A light cadmium yellow, I think, kind of blends better and kind of has that more lighter, uh, ghostly feel. That dark cadmium yellow, you could basically mix enough white into it, but honestly, it's not the best idea to just kind of mix extra white to make something lighter. It will not have that richness, and it'll kind of dull down a lot of colors, especially even something that's already super light like yellow. Uh, but also there's different blues too. I love ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue is my go-to blue. and I can't pronounce it properly. Phthalo blue, PHTH, weird spelling, ALO blue. Uh, I hate it, but I know it's necessary in some cases because if you want to get that blue, that bright blue, you kind of need that blue. But the reason I hate it is like every time I use it, it gets on everything. It's like I'll like do a dab with a brush, dab on the canvas. I look at my arms and I'm covered with phthalo freaking blue. Uh, I've ruined so many shirts and pants because of that color that I barely even use. Uh, a good orange mix. That's difficult. Uh, yeah, yellow and peach, you'll get flesh tones. Uh, and if you want to actually do flesh tones, I really like adding a little bit of burnt sienna to that because you kind of get this like coffee-ish flesh tone. And it, for me, it looks more like a real flesh tone than an actual flesh, but also like a little bit of green. Like honestly, with my canvas, it's like my regular flesh tones is like usually a mixture of like white, yellow, orange, burnt sienna, maybe a little umber if I want it darker. Sometimes a little bit of purple, sometimes a little bit of green, depending on what I'm painting. Yeah, like, seriously, I'm very analytical when it comes to like sections and shadows and all that madness. But an orange mix, I well honestly with me, I bought cadmium orange. I really enjoy that color right now, and I've been using that a lot. But honestly, if you did, like, you're probably using a darker red, I assume. Uh, like a cadmium deep hue is the red that most people can find easily. Cadmium light red, or uh, usually it's cadmium red soft, or uh, cadmium red low. It is a brighter, more full red. Uh, uh, Actually, no, I think I just ran out of it, so I need to get more. Uh, but it's a red that's almost like an orange. Uh, and that works really, really well when you're mixing with yellows. It doesn't automatically go to a peach. But honestly, even just to mix an orange, sometimes the best thing is just finding an orange to begin with and adding either red or yellow to kind of lighten or intensify. But yeah, I do find that as well. Basically, if you're just taking a yellow and a red, it usually ends up more peach than anything else. But it's because like a lot of paints and depending on like what pigment is used, there might actually be some sort of chemical reaction happening that causes it not to have the desired effect. Uh, yeah, especially like you think of white in a painting or the white you use. The most common white anyone uses is titanium white. Fun thing about titanium white, in order for titanium white to be made, it actually is mostly derived from black materials that are oxidized and turned, and basically titanium scraped off, and it's really cool. Uh, I'll say this: for the pigments and paints, and the paints you use, the paints that you find most common, the paints that come easy to you, it's a long, annoying process that I did as a student that pissed me off, and I hated it. But like looking back, I was like, I wish I still had this. Was actually taking my paints and basically making a square chart uh, on a piece of canvas or like gessoed paper, and marking off like a half inch or 1 inch at a time. And it's like, okay, here's cadmium red, here's phthalo blue, here's viridian green, here's titanium white, here's this. And up here, it's like, okay, well, here's cadmium red, here's phthalo blue. And basically mixing the colors at like a 50-50 ratio and filling in that square and keep doing that. So if there was a color I needed or color I wanted to build or color I desired, I could go to that chart because like, oh, if I did these two colors, I get kind of close. I could do that and maybe add a little bit more one or the other. It's something that I did. It helped. It didn't help because I was pompous, uh, pompous artist. Yeah, very much an asshole. Uh, uh, but real quick, back on the white. Most of the time it is titanium white, but there's other whites out there. If you're not using titanium, it's most likely zinc. Thing is, the reason titanium white is so good is because it is opaque. You can mix it with anything, or you can just put it down, and you're not going to see light or any color difference or saturation or blending or see through with titanium white at all. Zinc white is different. Zinc white, it's a really good white, but it's not as an intense white. It won't dull your color down more than titanium white. And in fact, it's a little see-through. So if you actually even just put a full splash of zinc white on a piece or over a piece, you're actually going to have a slight amount of see-through. So like each color has its own chemical formula construction uh, that because the pigments used, it's like really weird if you start to explore like how these pigments are made, and it's ridiculous how pigments are made. Uh, and yeah, they're mostly it's chemicals. It is full on chemicals. Uh, Jeez, like purple, the most common like violet purple. Like the reason purple is considered a color of royalty was because in order to get purple pigment back in the day, it was nearly freaking impossible. Uh, there wasn't really a great blue. It was like lapis lazuli or uh, was the blue, and that was also really expensive. So, but red was a little bit easier. So you really couldn't mix the two to get a desired intense purple. I can't remember what beach it was, but purple ink or purple pigment used to be made from seashells. And it was found because like this beach was just covered with these seashells that people would walk on, and all of a sudden they like get home or get off the beach and like look at their feet, and it's like they had little purple stains all over it because they were crushing these seashells under their feet. And it was a beautiful, intense purple color. And the reason purple is for royalty is because if you take those seashells, you can crush them up and get that purple pigment or ink or whatever it was. But I think it was like 40 pounds of seashells to get like a half an ounce. That's why, like, it was a rare, desired pigment. So it can't, only the royalty could have it because only the royalty was able to afford it. But later in a chem lab, kind of getting to the point of the story, uh, I can't. Someone is like, as the story goes, it's probably like this, but a little bit different. Someone was pouring chemicals down the sink, and all of a sudden, two of the chemicals kind of mixed while they were pouring down and became purple for a second. I think that's with the dioxide or there's manganese violet dioxide purple is one of those two, which aka chemical names. And it was like, whoa, wait, what happened? So he like, what chemicals was I pouring down? What was I doing? Then all of a sudden he figured out what two those were. So this chemist who was trying to develop like medicines and uh, other items for people, all of a sudden discovered a pigment that he was able to patent and produce and get out there to basically make a cheap, inexpensive purple that was near the quality of royal purple. And like made a good heck of amount of money by making a paint pigment. I don't really know many other stories like that, but that's one I always found like quite fascinating. Is one of the reasons. Like people ask me what my favorite color is, I'll usually say violet or purple. But if you look at my paintings, I rarely use those colors as colors itself. So if you look at my paintings, most likely you'll think my favorite color is brown. And honestly, it kind of really is. Let's see. Oh, you're just gonna bring up. So you know the story. Okay, never mind. Blah blah blah. Well, funny thing about lead in paint. Lead is not used as a color additive. Lead is actually used to dry paint. Uh, So like the whole stories about like kids eating paint chips and everything is because they were really old houses, and it was oil-based paint that was going on the walls. And when oil doesn't really dry, it oxidizes, so it expands, contrasts, and cracks. Uh, and I always found that funny, 'cause, like, yeah, because oil paint doesn't dry. Oxygen molecules in the air actually interact with the oils used, usually linseed oil or walnut oil, and it will, quote, oxidize. So actually, a painting that I start painting now will actually get heavier because it's picking up extra oxygen molecules. So I believe it's like 12% heavier after it's completely oxidized based on, or when you put the paint on. So that's already a cool thing. But one of the things is it's oil. There's parts of oil that are like a painting I'm working on right now. I have to go back to uh, like in a few days, because hopefully in a few days that oil paint will become tacky and I can work over it. Uh, uh, but it stays wet for a long time. That's one of the reasons people desire oils is because of how long it stays wet or workable. Not really so much wet, but workable. Uh, but yeah, it was like the only like there's a few other paints in the past and everything, and oil was a huge breakthrough because of that. But you have tempera, which basically I think is like taking the pigment and mixing it with like egg uh, as a binder. Uh, Oil became a binder. Watercolor is cool because basically water is the binder. Acrylics are very much a new thing, and it's basically a synthetic binder that dries very quickly, and that's one of the reasons acrylics are kind of coveted too. It's because of how quick they dry and how much like you work on one section, next day you can work all over it again. Uh, but that's only a recent effect. Uh, Paint chips, aka with lead and eating, that was like, how do you get your oil paint to oxidize or quote dry quicker? And lead is actually a great additive for that. Most of the time, it is added. And there's some pigments that, mostly the cadmiums, that lead is added to, not to make them like more red or all that stuff. It's because it actually helps them dry because those pigments will keep the oil from oxidizing or drying as quick as desired. So yeah, lead and paint. That's kind of how that happened. I have to scroll back because I can't even remember what the point of that now. Yeah, and yeah, paint chips with the chemicals and stuff too. Yeah, some of the chemicals are not good at all. Uh, and that's actually one of the benefits of acrylics. They don't have lead in them, so they're a lot safer. Uh, scroll, 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 scroll. Yeah, reworking a painting. Like, but the thing is, there is some delay to that. Uh, Most of the time, it's like a week for me that I can go back and rework a section. If something I don't like, scrape it off. But most of the time, I usually don't do that. Uh, I know a few artists that whenever they, oh wow, it's hard to say. It's whenever they go back to a painting. It's like if they work on a painting one day and they go back the next day, it kills me a little bit. They'll actually take a rag and wipe off the whole painting, so you get like the shadow of what was there before. And they're amazing artists, and I understand why they do it. But with my style, I cannot do that at all. But at the same time, they're figure painters, and they have like it's impressive what they can pull out of something that they just destroyed. Uh, but I think I'm using the word wrong. But like their paintings do always have like this ethereal, shadowy, atmospheric quality, which is really really cool. Uh, but yeah, going back and reworking sections, it was like like oil paint. There's so much thought that you have to put into it, and behind it that you have to work with. There's the thin over or thick over thin, basically saying if your thin down oil paint should be the first layer, and as you keep adding layers to it, the paint should be thicker and thicker. Multiple reasons for that. The thicker the paint, the easier it is to actually apply on the canvas, for one. The second one, if you put thin paint over thick paint, when I say thin paint, I mean weak paint, basically paint thinner, thin it out, like more of a wash. If you put that over a thick oily, heavy paint. Once it starts to oxidize, they'll oxidize at different rates. So that thinner paint, because it has less oil, it has less of a need to oxidize. So it'll do it quicker. That thick paint underneath will not. So it takes longer. But also there's a little bit of a shrinking process, an expansion process, depending on like thickness and paints and pigments. It'll force the top layers to crack. So yeah, that's why like oil paint is amazing that you can go back into and rework, and you don't have to get it all done in one day, and you can explore different ideas over a time span, but at the same time there's so much you have to think and look and focus. That whole thick over thin, there's just times you just want to scrape off something you've been working on for so long just to do something different. Yeah, I think I'm finally getting tired. Oh, this has been fun. Oh, I have an early morning. Oh, well, sorry for everyone that's joining right now. Uh, yeah, I have. Actually, I think I'm gonna. It's great actually having a conversation with you, even though it's like mostly one-sided. But I think I'm gonna have to get off now. I have an early morning. I say I have two beautiful foster children, and their agent is coming tomorrow for a house inspection, and basically just to check on the kids. Oh, sweet. So yeah, I'm sorry for the person that just joined, but yeah, I got to go to bed too. I'm out. If anyone knows what this shirt says, please tell me. Okay. How do I turn this off? Okay. Well, thank you so much, man. It was really great hanging with you. Cheers.